Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Barrington Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours a day. I'd like to introduce you to our very talented co-host, Ms. Jackie Williams.
Hello, everyone.
And Mr. Henry Hatter.
Hi, Ron.
And welcome to you, our many viewers. We have a news brief. Those using Roundup should think about this product before using it. It could cause cancer. We've all seen these advertisements on the TV day in and day out, so heed that advice. Secondly, let's take a moment of silence for those affected by Hurricane Doreen that has brought death, destruction, and hardships to thousands. President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. It will cost American citizens billions. I don't believe in tariffs. I think people, heads of government, heads of countries should sit down and talk out their differences. This tariff is going to cost our American farmers millions upon millions, which it already has, and other very, very vital materials that come into the United States. And it's unconscionable. Mr. Hatter, what do you think about these tariffs?
Well, Ron, I think that tariffs are both good and bad. When tariffs are instituted to favor you as a country, they're good. Because we benefit by controlling products that come into our country that our business entities compete with. We can regulate who has the dominant product in the marketplace. We want to make sure that our businesses are always dominant in the marketplace. I realize that we're in a situation now where many people, even including young people, don't want to see the United States dominant anymore. They want it subjugated. As we move further and further across toward a world government or a world marketplace, people are buying into that, and you can see it every day. It is difficult to have a civil conversation without argumentation about whether American businesses are legitimate, whether they operate legitimately, whether they are allowing American people to benefit from the product that they build or the income that they make. That's always a question. But the United States has for years allowed, and all presidents have done this, conceded that dominant posture to other countries. Both the Republicans and Democrats have done that. And now we live in a country now that the philosophy of how we do business has now changed. And we have people who don't necessarily make the big bucks anymore. Remember, in 1955, the United States made 75% of the consumer goods and services in the world. And we could hire at will. As a matter of fact, the union wanted to seek from General Motors a guaranteed annual wage, just because people worked for General Motors and Ford and Chrysler. And you can see how that would have devastated the business. And so this is how well we were doing. But over the years, Japan was the first one that came in as they saw what the Americans were doing. And they had some IOUs come in from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they were ready to delve into the business world. And the first thing they did, they went to Ford and said, hey, we will build your radios. We will produce them, package them, distribute them, and all you have to do here for your cars, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, I think that radio belonged to Ford initially. Did I say Delco? Which radio did I name?
You didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, Philco I named. And later, the Japanese controlled all of the radios, and they made radios for all cars. And the rest of the story, you know now. You don't buy good radios in this country anymore. The Japanese were foremost. And now Korea and some of the others have jumped in. But we conceded all of that, and there were no tariffs on stopping these radios from coming in. And it eroded away the business market. It eroded away jobs and stuff like that. And I agree with the president that we've got to somehow, in order to keep this country stable with this multicultural ideas and having to recognize that people do want the same things also by gender. So in order to provide this, to keep our populations stable, we've got to have jobs in this country. We've got to tax out some of the stuff that comes in to the United States. We only provide 40% of manufactured goods to the world market. We used to have 60%. This was in manufactured goods. And we will I won't guess, but we may never get back to the 60%. And we may never get back to parity. We will continue to decline unless we come up with some new products that people around the world want, and that we can be good at building or teaching or something like that. Right now, the highest item on the market is not mechanical things, it's intellectual things. United States prevail in the intelligence products, like computers and like things that require artificial intelligence. We do quite well with that. But
How did the unions? How and why did the unions drop the ball?
They drove the prices up.
Mm-hmm.
Americans said, it was the population that reacted to General Motors. They got, I'm sorry, not just General Motors, but the automobile industry.
Mm-hmm.
They were still charging these high prices for any kind of innovation that they added on the car and passing them on to the consumer. Well, Japan had just almost beat us in the Pacific, and with that technology, and they just kind of flowed into the marketplace, and they came out with Toyota and Honda and all of those other cars. The only thing about them, they rusted early, but then they perfected that over time. And you can see some of the hottest cars on the market today are from from Japan. And this is what may be difficult for Tariff to curb yet, because the American people see that product as a very good one. But Trump has got it measured out so that we have to have some kind of a reciprocal aspect to our tariffs. If you tariff us, we will tariff you. We want to see that the transfer of gold across the boundaries is equal both ways. And right now, the gold.
Well, they've learned. China's learned, because when we taxed them, they came back and just taxed us when we were getting ready to tax them. So, but let's go back to the top for me. And what we learned is that they were saying that, a lot of people are upset about what China has done, because they're not just only taken over a lot of our products, but they've stolen our intelligence. So they've done several things. So instead of, like they were saying, we are not an island. We are stronger when we're a force. So they were saying, we have allies. Why didn't we approach it with our allies so that you wouldn't be able to go to this one and you wouldn't be able to go to this? Because we're all together saying you have to come and do what everybody else, and you have to make your product, the same as everybody else. And so if you're going to tax us, we're going to tax you. So instead of doing that, he did it by himself, and he did it by bullying. What he did was he drove the market down, because people were like, okay, now you're doing all these tariffs, and it's just you, and the other countries are saying stop because you're affecting the whole economy. So what happened was you drove those tariffs in, and we're paying them. They're not paying them. China's not paying them. We're paying them in products. If you go to the grocery store right now, you see a whole lot of stuff that went up, and you didn't even realize. You're like, wow, when did this go up? So what has happened is the farmers are not able to sell their stuff and their soybeans, and so they have rotted. So a lot of farmers are on the verge of bankruptcy because they're not able to sell their product to everybody. And then the other thing is they're not interested in a bailout. They want to be able to sustain themselves. So they're not interested in you ruining something that was working. Yeah, you can tighten it up, but don't destroy it. They said that even if they get back, they'll never be back to the trade that they had before all of this stuff has happened. So a lot of those relationships are not going to be resolved. So we should have came with all of our allies, should have had a plan. When you are the United States of America and you're getting ready to tap something that's going to affect so many people, you have to listen to another voice besides your own.
Yeah, but I think what the president had in mind was that there would be some short-term discomfort for farmers. We knew that. This is not the first time we've been through this. President Roosevelt went through the same thing when he had all of the beans and the cattle killed in 1933 to create a marketplace in the United States. We've been through there. We've seen it. And of course we've seen it in other ways I cannot quote right now, but the people who thought this through, don't think that they didn't look at the consequences, because they did. And I think the president might have indicated that there would be some short-term pain. And there are some farmers out there who agreed with him that they'll try to, they knew that they would have some short-term pain, but to ride it out. And the difficulty is, while our people are suffering here, so are the people in China. And that's where you have to make your points heard. Because the people in China, so many of them, you put out of work. You're talking about revolution. You lose control of that country, and then you got just...
I mean, I understand, but what you said was a point. The president have a tendency not to listen to his advisors. That's why they're advisors, because they're the professionals in that field.
Sure.
God did not give all knowledge to one person. So you don't have the tops on everything that you do. You have to consult with other people that know a little bit more than you do. But our president have a tendency to think that he is all-knowing. And that gives so much room for failure and bad decisions. So again, I understand that there was going to be some short term, but we can't make negotiations by bullying.
Oh, I don't know if it was bullying. I wouldn't say it was bullying.
No, you don't have to, because I will say it on here again. He was bullying because he talked about it.
Anybody who thinks the United States does something, the United States is a big bully. We can't
we
treat
might
our
have
country
had
that way. We live in the best circumstances in the world.
But we still should not treat. But when you're trying to negotiate, they tell you in negotiations you have to have the right tone and the right conversation. So guess what? You can't you can't just not listen to the people that are in the room that know more than you, because everybody is pointing.
But you assume that Americans don't know anything, and they built the world's economy.
I didn't say the Americans. I said your president.
Well, he
doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Well,
he doesn't know much, but he doesn't listen, and that's the thing.
And that's why he gets things done.
No, he's not. A smart person listen to wisdom.
Where is the wisdom coming from?
any voice
Why
besides
wasn't it
his.
there before the president was elected?
It was called Obama.
Well, why wasn't it there
Wise.
before Obama got elected?
Obama did not tackle that, but I'm not saying that we don't need to tackle it. It's just a way to
The
tackle
United
things.
States has put a mark on the world that nobody else will ever do.
Well, we put a mark on the world with this president and nobody else
We
has
put the
ever
world on
done.
wheels. We gave them technology. We built roads. We built
And we gave them
rocket
baby
ships.
Trump.
We gave them.
Now we
yeah.
gave the world baby Trump. Now we're embarrassed.
Baby
We're embarrassed all over the United States because everybody knows that he doesn't know what he should know. He doesn't listen to anybody. So what I'm saying is we have to get back to the standards of the United States.
Well-
In order to do a big deal like this, we have to get back to where we are. We should not lose who we are, regardless of who's representing us.
You're gonna appreciate the president when he leaves, though.
I'm not going to.
Yeah, you were.
I appreciate
Oh,
Obama.
where is president?
No, I saw Obama in the picture and I almost had tears
Oh.
because I miss him.
With that, let's change gears here. We have a mayoral contest coming up in Flint shortly. Jackie, why don't you take the lead on this conversation?
So I think we had 7 contestants that were running, and now we've had the primaries, and so now we have Sheldon Neely is going against Mayor Karen Weaver. The results were very surprising because Sheldon Neely, normally an incumbent, pretty much takes over the primary, but she lost. It wasn't a very large number. I think it was less.
7%.
7%, okay. But it was a victory for the state representative, Sheldon Neely. And some of the concerns, because I'm reading different things, and some of the concerns were the lead pipe replacements. They were stating that a lot of their yards had not been restored. They had been promised. Other thing is that they were tired of the rift between the city council and the mayor, of how they weren't working together, and whatever recommendations they were making, the mayor wasn't taking the recommendations but doing something totally different. Positions were not being filled. I think the ombudsman position had not been filled in
The charter had not been.
3 or 4 years.
yeah, and the charter calls for one to be in place.
Yeah.
So we were not doing it, and the charter is new. So they just had a group coming in, what, 3 years, I'm thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new charter, and I think within the last 3 years. But the things that the charter called for, we were not following.
Yeah.
And so a lot of stuff got, the ball was dropped. So now they're starting to do the sidewalks. But people have complained they don't want this to be an election process where, you just do stuff around election time and then nothing else get done the rest of the year. Water still is not being distributed. People are coming in giving out water, but the state of Michigan still hasn't started up the water again. And they've had some boil warnings where you had to use boil water, and then we just got cited at the water treatment center again for not having proper staff, not having the changes that the EPA had called for us to do. So we still have a lot of things that we need to work on. I think it's almost like you need to do a list. I'm a list person. You got to write a list so you can make sure you're taking care and things don't fall through the cracks. And with Flint being, it's a comeback city to me, because if you look downtown, you see growth. But one of the things that some of the residents were saying is that you go to the north side and you see death. You don't see any new companies coming up over there, but everything is downtown. You got University of Michigan, you got Michigan State, you have Saginaw Valley inside of Mott, you have Mott Culinary School just started, you have the newspaper, you have the farmers market, you have and you have, I think, 3 apartment complexes coming downtown, but you have nothing going on the north side of Flint. So what does that do? That causes for people to resist and envy what's going on downtown.
But that's not a reason to abandon the city of Flint.
No, it
The
isn't.
focal point, where all industrial and activity, intellectual activity and everything starts in the center of the city. You want to build that infrastructure first, if you can, and branch out from there. I think it's premature for people to condemn the mayor for not moving as quickly in the outskirts, because you have to do things where the city is still looked at around the state and around Genesee County as a center of industry, the center of commerce, and the center of economic life.
But they have food deserts on the north side. Did you know
Yeah.
that? Because you had Kroger's to close, Myers to close. So they have food deserts. So they don't have any food.
Yeah, but whose fault is that? That the mayor's fault? Because people don't support their own neighborhoods?
It's not that they didn't close because they didn't support.
Why?
I
Why
spoke
did
to some people.
Why did Hammoney's close? And I drove all the way from Clio to...
I tried to go in and close really fast. I think theirs was poor planning. Because
who's plan?
Hamity. Because Hamity prices were very high. So what people tend to do, even in neighborhood stores on the north side, they know that there's a food desert, so they raise their prices. So you go get a loaf of bread at Myers for $1.15 or $1.25. You go to the food desert grocery store on the corner and you pay $2 for bread. So Hamity's prices were very high. Everybody stated their prices were very high. So they did not do the research to me to make sure that they were compatible with other people. So they fell, I think, within 6 months.
Yeah, they did. I was surprised when I went by there and they were closed. But the mayor does not bear the blame for all of that. She's probably doing the best she could with the resources that she had. And you know, the city of Flint does not have any money. It's selling now component parts. Parks, it's going to sell Chevy in the Hole, it's going to...
Port Huron, Genesee County is getting ready to sell that, the land.
Yeah, Carigandi.
Mm-hmm.
They're selling that, over in Lake Michigan. And I think that that's going to generate about, I just saw it, what's the number? But
I didn't see a number, I just saw that it was...
It's less than 10 million. And then the Chevy in the Hole is about 10 million. And they tried to sell the church over there, St. Agnes or give it away. And yet somehow that's combined with the county, and they'll have to work out those details. But I think it's getting rid of some of the assets that they have that they can convert into cash. But if they don't do something quickly to bring more businesses into the town, the population would be down to 75,000 by 2040.
But they
That's
did
20
say
years,
this. They used to have inside of the charter, and I have to go back and review it. Inside of the charter, people that worked in the city of Flint would pay a percentage of taxes, and then people that lived in the city of Flint that paid a percentage of taxes. And they're not doing that anymore. What they're doing is if you they would give you had to live in the city of Flint, and that caused us to have more revenue. That's it. You had to live in the city of Flint in order to work for the city of Flint. Now they've gotten rid of that, and so what they're saying is you're taking resources elsewhere. So, but if you have to live in the city of Flint, those revenues are coming into the city of Flint. So with the apartment complexes and all of those different things, they're missing a lot of money because a lot of people work in the city of Flint, like me, and then they live elsewhere. So that's not putting money back in the city of Flint.
But see, that's a state law that people can live wherever they want to live.
Yeah,
Now,
but
see, which is wrong. I've always been against that mess. All right, if you work for the city, you live in the city.
But guys, what you miss, you got to have people with the ability to run systems, large systems. We don't have those in the city of Flint. You have to hire the outside people.
Professional developers. Yeah.
And so communities around this donut, they are the ones that helped to make the city of Flint what it was. They had the skills, they had the knowledge, they had the will. They drove in all kind of weather to get to the jobs and on time. That's what made the city of Flint what it was.
So I will give it to, we have brought some, like GM have just signed and they just expanded again. So GM on Van Slyke is doing great things and they've expanded, but we gave them a big tax break.
And we should have.
And we should have, but also Lear Corporation is right there where old Buick was.
Yes.
And so they're doing very well, and they just brought in, we lost the contract to GM again because they're building in Burton. They just built a huge plant in Burton. So it's around the surrounding cities. But what I have noticed in the property management field, people are moving back to Flint. And I'm getting calls all the time where they're relocating, not just because of GM, but they're relocating because of parents getting older or whatever. So the scope is changing of people who are living in the city of Flint.
You know, Jackie, that's a good point, and I'm glad that you have thought through it. There are a lot of people that's negative on what you have just said. They don't want the other people coming back in. They'll take their jobs. You know, they will take their advantage in political life because they vote and so on and so forth. And these are young people. Young people want to be closer to libraries. Mm-hmm. They want to be closer to movie theaters. They want to be closer to the universities where they go, or their workplace. Now, they're moving back in. What a really opportune time for the mayor to take advantage of that. But her population may not take advantage of it. So you have a divide right away there. And we're likely to keep the city of Flint encumbered by this negative argument. And people obviously don't want to move into a city that's unfriendly to them. They have the money. They have all of the skills to do whatever people in the city of Flint wants them to do. But their population don't want it. Now, there's something wrong. That's a tough population. I'm sensitive to the mayor on that issue. And she should probably always stand up to that issue because that's where growth is. Now look what the University of Michigan has done. They have beautified the city of Flint, the waterways, University of Michigan to the city of Flint downtown at the bridge. That is so beautiful. It looked like it would appear as though it's the Blue Danube. It's that beautiful.
It is pretty. Even with the school, going. Well, my college, I got to give my college have brought. They just made that new school. You know that fine arts school right there on the corner, sure. And all of that is connected to And they said now you have more people at the library, you have more people in fine arts. So it's driving because that school just started, and it's a fine arts school, first one in the city of Flint. And they had 975 applicants, but it only had 375 spaces. Mm-hmm. So people are pursuing. And I found some tenants that want to live close to the school, like you said. So they're moving back in the city to be close to that school because their kids got in that school. So there's good things happening in Flint. And it's going to take time because there's been a lot of damage. So it's going to take time. But you
got to have the right leadership. I'm not sure the right leadership is at the table.
Right, I agree.
I'm not sure about that.
I agree.
And we have to be cautious, and the people who listen to this show have to understand that they have to elect people who want to see the city grow, irrespective of age, race, or gender.
And it can't just be your group. It has to be all groups.
Or Republicans.
Well, you just threw my foot.
With that, we must bring the In My Opinion show to a close. This is Ronald Barrington Robinson saying until next time, stay focused.